New for 96. With your hosts, Kevin McCauley and Chris Nguyen.
Yeah,
All right, got a test. Talk real loud. Let me see where you peak.
Hello.
Kevin, talk like normal.
Knifey spoony.
Knifey spoony.
You know, we moved on to other cutlery now.
Yeah.
I mean, look, you can't live in the past.
Southern Hemisphere cutlery.
Jordan. Okay, I guess we can kind of keep on talking. But
Okay.
Jordan, I have a story to tell you. When I was traveling in a fried out combi, it was on a hippie trail, head full of zombie. I met a strange lady. She made me kind of nervous. She took me in and gave me breakfast, and then she said,
Oh, no. I mean,
welcome to
No for
96.
the best part about this is, I mean, it's an ambush that I sat here and watched you prepare. And I don't know.
It took him 5 minutes to cue that up. It's the second time he did it.
I mean, I still don't have a response.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You can't see this, but Chris is really getting into the jam.
He's jamming. And look, here's the thing. Can you find another song?
This is the only Australian song
No,
that
it is
I know.
not. If
Thunder
this-
Down Under is the other one, I guess.
There we go. So now, if you were to imagine that that's the song that will get us standing on a table and screaming in a bar somewhere,
Yes, is it?
probably in Brussels.
Isn't it the national
Definitely in
anthem?
Brussels with muscles.
Oh my god.
But it's not that song, and it's actually not the Australian anthem.
Yeah.
It's kind of shit.
Yeah.
It's really shit. It's awful. It's got like 30 verses.
Oh my god.
And it's actually the only reason to know the Australian anthem is if you're either so uneducated that you're really proud about it, or you went to a private school where they forced you to learn verses. And the
Oh
more
my
exclusive
God.
the private school, the more verses you learn.
Honestly,
And it is.
that was the greatest thing that Prime Minister Paul Hogan ever instituted.
It was at that and tax avoidance. He did get done for tax schemes. See if you can plug in and find a band called Hunters and Collectors.
Yes.
And put on the Holy Grail. Now, this is, like, you know, Pepsi always has a Super Bowl ad at halftime. You know, it's kind of their thing. This is the song they play to describe
What
our
is it?
Super Bowl.
Is your Super Bowl like cricket or rugby?
No, it's Australian football.
Football?
I'll tell you about it once I clarify.
What is it?
Hunters
Uh-huh.
and Collectors,
Okay, keep going.
the Holy Grail.
Okay.
And, you know, our Super Bowl is called the Grand Final. And it was actually recently. It's Australian football, our national sport. It's entirely sort of based and born and bred out of the city I grew up in, Melbourne, where you've got, and I'm going to be crucified for this, you've got like 20-something, 30 teams. And, you know, of those, like 20 of them, or 15, 20 of them are from Melbourne, right? Playing one big ground.
Yeah.
Comes together, the finals in the same place every year, same time, same date, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
Okay, I have a
And it's
question.
huge.
Is Australian football soccer?
No, and it is not rugby. And
Is
it
it
is
football?
It's called Australian football, Australian rules football. It's a
Okay.
full contact sport, no pads. It's nothing like rugby or American football.
It's only in Australia?
Only in Australia and colonies.
Interesting.
Wow.
I had no idea.
Wow. So they drive the Holden Maloo right on the field.
And they do burnouts, and the ruts are really good because it makes
Yeah.
for inconsistent play.
Very-
We love that.
That's the
Wow.
challenge. Yeah. That's
The
the
field
best.
goal is hot wiring the Maloo.
The field goals are right.
And you take and when you start it, you carry the ball in the payload area across the line.
Well, and it's a really embarrassing thing about us. Yeah, this one. This is the song that we'll get up on the table, shirts off, and scream. Not now.
You don't need to demonstrate
Yeah,
that.
the table's covered in sensitive equipment
This
and cheaper
sounds
tripods.
this sounds far too dignified for our American understanding of international cultures.
Yeah.
I reckon there's got to be a YouTube segment of drunk Australians screaming that song.
I would only imagine.
I would
Yes.
expect you to be in it.
Yeah.
Well, have been. Might not have been on the internet. Who knows? It could have been before the time.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, the travesty with the Maloo.
When did Australia get the internet?
Oh, we still haven't. So basically, we had this big infrastructure project called the NBN, the National Broadband Network. We were aspirationally trying to build a broadband network in the mid to late 2000s.
Ooh.
It's not done. It's not done.
Yeah, but you're going to have 2G when you get to it.
Amazing. I can't wait for your country to
Guys, we
achieve
haven't
this
introduced our
advancement.
guest.
Oh my God! Yeah, I know. Sorry.
Well, you can Google me,
Yes.
and in 2 weeks in Australia, you'll know who I am.
This is true.
Dial up.
Once your name is downloaded, because there are a lot of consonants, and
Yeah.
consonants take a bit of time to download. Jordan,
Yeah.
will you pronounce your last name correctly?
Wish I could. Remeljej.
Oh my
Whoa.
God. I honestly, anytime I've ever said your last name, there have been a lot more juzz in there.
Well, I mean, it has.
Did you,
Is there anyone that we know of or could actually think of that has 3 J's in their name?
It's a lot of J's.
Dr. J.
There's a 1.
Okay.
It literally has one.
What if you say Julius Dr. J. Irving? That's 2.
Yeah?
Okay.
Okay, yeah.
But 3.
Yeah.
It's excessive.
Yeah. Jeff Jablansky's got 2.
Yep.
Yeah.
Still, two's easy.
JJ.
Friend of the pod.
I won't. There's the kind of fashion brand JJ 3 J's Ound. You
Yeah.
familiar with this?
No.
No, we're not fashionable
Oh
people.
my God.
Right.
Have you
Anyways.
seen the car-related shirts we're wearing?
Yeah.
Oh,
We
you
are
are. I'm the
disqualified
only one that
anyway.
doesn't have like a 911 shirt on.
Yes.
I had an RL for shirt that I just saw in my drawer over there. It's a 9641. You got the 930 on.
I do indeed, and a big shout out to Antonio, wherever he is. I know where he is. I'm not going to tell everyone, because
he
he's a
in-
wonderful human being. You'll mob him.
Isn't he in a sunnier place
He
currently?
is in a sunnier place.
Yeah, because we ran into him randomly.
Oh, did you really?
Yeah, I ran into
did.
it at Luft like last year.
Well, way to give it away.
Well, I mean, I've been meaning to.
Lots of people travel to Luft. We do.
You know, there's people that you just, you dearly enjoy, and you're like, we'll catch up. And
Yeah.
yeah.
yep, I'm not going to San Diego. Not saying that's where he is, but not going there.
Yeah.
Yeah, San Diego C. No, that's too obvious. SD California.
Well, that's what they always say. I mean, San Diego's what's an aircraft carrier and a zoo.
Yeah.
And, you know, and if I want to see a lot of planes and nonsense, I'll go to Nevada, where they've got the
Yeah.
boneyard and all the gambling drunks.
Yeah.
I mean, it's closer.
Yeah.
I'll road trip there.
Just
Keep
a
a car
hop
related.
and a skip and 18 hours away.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, we are Shameless Whores, and Jordan was our most popular episode.
He was.
So
I'm sorry.
we had him back.
We still have not properly introduced Jordan Remeljej.
Yep.
He is
Add a J, and you're there. Owner.
creator, owner, CEO, president, COO, CFO of
And-
Modern Air Cooled in Houston, Texas.
Consistent nuisance.
Yes.
Modern air cooled in Houston, Texas.
If you will.
And just for posterity, for the rest of the episode, to make sure we clarify, you can call me Jordan Rory. Rory is actually short for Remeljej.
Wait, I cannot believe we were
This
just
is amazing.
speaking earlier, just prior to this episode or starting, we were recording about Rory's and what Rory is short for. I said it was Rorald.
I said it was Rorginald, which I think is the closest.
Yeah, I think it might be. But according to Jordan, it's Remeljej.
I mean,
Remeljej.
yeah, find another one and ask them. If you can't,
Yeah.
I'm right.
Yep, this is true.
Yeah.
Well, thanks for joining us again.
Yeah, I mean, I had so much fun last time, and
Yeah.
I was really anxious to get back on. And now the only anxiety left is I want to make sure I don't repeat any of the stories from last
Here's
time.
the thing: is that it's hard to vet that because we may or may not have been incapacitated by the end of that podcast.
Yeah. We all blacked
So-
out and then just released the episode without listening, and I refused to listen again.
Yes, no.
So the episode's actually popped up quite a bit recently for me in that I'm doing a whole bunch of outside business consulting with a shop, and part of that is trying to understand the culture and who's there and me personally and what that means. And a very very good friend of mine who's helping me with this, who's like, well, you should be listening to How I Built This, the podcast. And I was like, well, actually, I'm going to go back on their podcast. Or this is when I was driving to Louisiana. And I'm going to go back on
When
their
you
podcast.
called me and berated me.
Yes, and I
Continue.
berated you. Going to go back on their podcast. I'm listening to the new episodes just to find out what they've been doing and what they're up to. And he went and listened to mine. Or as he said, most of it. It was 2.5 hours long.
It was
Yeah.
a tad
And I said, well,
long.
It was a 3.5 hours, but probably 5 by the time I left the house.
It was 2 metric hours.
All the
which
best
was
stuff
one-
Metric hours.
Yeah.
All the best stuff was after we stopped recording because you had all these other stories and stuff.
Yeah.
That, you know.
No, and look, here is why we're guzzling the whiskey, because we need to make sure we get back to that point.
Yeah.
It's like you study for the test drunk and then you take it drunk.
Exactly.
That's
just come
the
back to
only
you.
way to survive.
Yeah.
It's
You gotta
also
get back to
it's
that.
the Icarus method. I mean,
Yeah.
we're going to fly real close to the sun.
Uh-huh.
You know,
Yeah.
and coming from a country with no ozone layer, I know what that means. In fact, if you
No.
jump a little too high in Australia, you're either a kangaroo or sunburnt.
Oh my god. I cannot believe that is actually true that they say that there.
It is.
Don't even need to verify.
I think it's an idiom.
Yes.
Idiot M.
Mm-hmm.
Now, as I understand it, you don't have horses there, but you do have enormous spiders that you can ride.
We
I thought you were going to say wallabies.
we
Yeah,
do.
That's what they're called.
We actually have horses. They're a bit prissy and a bit sensitive.
They have 8 legs.
They're
they don't-
kangaroos.
yes. No, actually, as far as domestic livestock goes, we are the world's largest exporter of camels.
What?
What?
As far as transportation
all,
goes, we will discuss the spiders in a
who
minute
is
because
buying-
I'm creeping myself
Who
out.
is buying camels?
I mean, lasagna purveyors in England.
I
think.
guess. My god.
No, so they were basically set up as a wild invasive species, and they exist in the middle where there's nothing else there,
Yeah.
and they've flourished and thrived. So we send them back to Saudi
Like the
Arabia.
frog that Bart Simpson brought over.
Yeah, well, yes, and that's a particularly harsh joke. That one.
Yes.
Really?
Yeah.
They're very sensitive. Remember the
boot?
hurt feelings, Australia. What was the file folder?
Yeah, it was something like that. Yeah.
Like, yeah.
I took some screenshots of some of those jokes.
Yeah.
They were amazing.
Australia, the hurt feelings of.
So I mean, Australia, we play it hard and loose with words and offensive
Yes,
words
of
and swear
course,
words of
yeah,
all
well.
kinds. But there was a government campaign that was run when I was younger and is still going today.
Yes.
Quarantine, don't with it.
Oh my god, we did not.
And it's written and it's there and yeah, hopping mad. The most amazing thing for us is like we are incredibly well focused on staying an island.
Yes.
And no man is an island, but our country doesn't want a wife. Kevin is showing a series of Simpsons screenshots and memes from the Australian episode.
Postage stamp celebrating 30 years of electricity. It's so funny.
Sorry.
If you exist in this country as a musician a little past your prime, we're ready for you in 10 years. I mean, that's,
Yep.
like, Nickelback is still touring there.
Yeah.
But we're going back to it. Oh, geez, that I've lost the train of thought entirely. The road train of thought.
Yes.
A very, very another Australian
Yes.
transportation aspect. But
I've seen that in Fury Road.
so someone made a Fury Road joke to me, and I haven't seen it.
Oh my god, it's so good.
I've seen the original Mad Max, but
Yeah, not very good.
Well, I mean, come on, it's great.
It's the national movie. I'm sorry.
Come on, man.
Fury Road's really good. Okay,
It's
we'll
the
cut this
castle,
out.
actually. The
I've
castle
seen
and the
none
castle.
of this.
The castle shows a series of car hoarding, the kind that everyone in Jalopnik does but doesn't admit to. Mm-hmm. You know, the 4 or 5. Oh, they'll run. Kind of Holdens. But yeah, it's... Yeah, so anyway, going back to spiders, Chris. Yeah. Quit distracting us with your photography. Yeah, so we have spiders that you ride.
I'm in the strike zone for when this tripod collapses.
I know.
It's gonna be a 10-pound camera hitting my head.
All right, so the nervousness in our voice. We tried to start this podcast probably an hour ago at this point, and for the first 30 minutes, Chris has been taking candid photos of the room with a tripod that Kevin has no respect for, and he's underneath the shadow of, and he's very nervous that it's going to fall on him.
I had one just like this, and I remember one plastic part just breaking apart from the other plastic part. And I like in New York, and so I think I was in Brooklyn. I lived not in Brooklyn, but I lived in another part of New York, and I'd taken it with me to shoot some stuff at night, and I ended up just throwing it in a garbage can.
I mean, everything in New York becomes trash eventually.
Yeah.
I think that's a trope.
So we're not going to let you get out of talking about spiders.
Yeah, so
I know the feeling. I when I was in high school, it was like biology. We had to pick an animal to do a project, like a presentation about. And so I was like, I'm going to face my fear I'm going to research spiders. So I'm sitting in the library, like squirming in my chair, like Googling, well, not Google, this was like Lycos, looking at pictures of spiders and reading about them. And I'm like sliding back further and further in my chair until I'm basically under the thing to get my head as far away from the computer as possible. And the library computer lab manager lady was like, is something wrong with you? And I was like,
Did you just say library?
We're gonna check the tape. There's a chance. But anyway, I changed to squid, and it was better for all involved.
Well, this is like, what is it? Tryptophobia or something like that.
Fear of threes?
No, fear of holes, which is like the new iPhone has 3 lenses, and it triggers me because
that is awful.
I hate porous things. Like I cannot look at a sponge without cringing.
What?
Yeah, I hate natural holes.
Okay.
I mean, anyways, we'll take that for what that can be extrapolated to, joke-wise. Anyways, spiders are, in fact, awful.
So, I'm extremely phobic of spiders. You know, there are things I'm scared of that I might judder or yell or do an to. The scream that I have whenever I see a spider is internal and piercing to myself. I inherited this from my mother as a child. Whenever I'd go, sorry, damn it, Kevin. Whenever I would go with her and she would see a spider of any way, shape, or form, she would scream, run, yell. And when you're a little kid strapped to your car seat and there's a giant huntsman, which we're going to have to add a picture somewhere for people to really get into perspective of, is a spider the size of a dinner plate crawling out from under the sun visor. You learn to be afraid of them. Now, where this comes back down to it is that we discussed doing another episode of the podcast 3 or 4 days ago. And of course, it's hey, jog your memory. You know, what are some Australian stories or quirks or personality traits that we might want to talk about?
Yeah.
And I was like a little at a loss because normally I'm pretty responsive to it. This is the one that I brought to the room. I get out of the car today and tell Kevin I nearly didn't make it. Open up the door and show him a giant can of bug killer. About a day ago or so, I went to get in the 993, drive to work in the morning, climb into my European GT3 RS bucket seats, which are sublime.
They're good. And they match your interior color.
And they match the interior color. But they're also a challenge and a chore to get into. And so I get all the way in, go up to press the garage opener at the windscreen, and there is a nice big brown spider on the inside of the windscreen.
I hate that.
I'm scared enough of spiders that if it was on the outside,
Yep.
that would still be a problem.
Oh my god.
This was not fun or not good.
I bet you've never gotten out of those seats quicker.
No, and I am so lucky that I just happened to be parked far enough away from the Cayenne that I didn't swing the door into it. And I walk inside, and this is the kind of fear where I got out of the car quickly, but then I just moved incredibly slowly. No blood to the brain, pallid, white face, and I go into the house and go...
You get the shotgun.
Nope. I just went and got the other car keys and left it. I haven't driven the car until now.
Left it? That's the worst. Because then you don't know where it goes.
Yeah, what was I going to do?
You don't know where it goes.
Well, that's the problem. So I came up with a solution.
How is it better that watching it go into some crevice in the dash or knowing that it did?
That's it. So I haven't driven the car until I drove it over here tonight. Unfortunately, it's my only, functionally running car. Shameless plug.
How many?
4.
How is that a plug for your car repair business?
No, well, I'm selling 2 of them. 2 of them are being serviced for sale.
Well, this will be a hell of an ad for them.
Yes, and the Miata I haven't driven in like 4 months. It didn't leak, or so I thought.
Yeah.
So the interior needs a good cleaning at this point. But anyway, so I haven't driven...
There's a spider just floating around in this car.
Probably not anymore. But I'm also going to probably have a heart attack or an aneurysm relatively soon.
That's not good.
I haven't driven it. I had to get over here for the podcast.
Yes.
And I said, well, you know what? I'm going to be a big boy. I can work this out. I went and got a can of like bug spray, spider killer. Turn the AC off because I don't want that stuff going into my cabin air filter. close the windows, and as I'm driving along, I'm spraying every surface and crevice I can find and breathing it in.
I feel like, well, then the spider's not going to live inside you. That's
Not
for
going to
sure.
be in your lungs. That's
Yeah.
for sure.
No,
Yeah.
definitely not going to be in my lungs. But it's the thing, like, you know, you get the phantom itch.
Yeah.
And, you know, I've had that the whole trip over because every second, every neuron that hasn't fires and goes, spider! And I'm terrified of it.
God,
Wow.
that's the only reason why I would ever own a firearm, which I picked it out. It's a Per Lindley revolver, thigh holster size.
Thigh holster.
And
Garter holster.
yeah, garter holster, and it would only be for spiders and roaches, so maybe mosquitoes. So if you ever see holes in my walls randomly, that'd be why.
When I had my Boxster, I used to leave the top down in the garage, and then I stopped doing that because one day I came out and I got in the car to go to work, and there was like a stick bug, which I know they're not. I know they're harmless. It was like it was like a 4 or 5 inch size stick bug on like by the key, like on the left side there, and I swear, like. I got in the car. I'm pretty sure I got out without opening the door. Like I just reverse Starsky and Hutch or whatever, like, or Dukes of Hazzard. Reverse Dukes of Hazzard over the door, out of the car, and then I like poked it off with a broom or something.
In my mind, he was in the car to pretend to be the shifter, and he was a lonely stick bug, and he just wanted to be touched.
Yeah. Well, it's the left side.
So whenever...
Oh no, the Ford GT40 had the shifter on the left side.
Yeah, it was right-hand drive, shifter on the left side. Yeah.
Okay, so the other way around. Yeah.
I think a lot of Le Mans cars did because they put the driver on the right side for weight distribution on a mostly right-hand corner track.
Yeah.
But a lot of drivers like to still have right-hand shifting.
Not so much Porsche. Keys on the left, bruh.
That's correct.
This is true.
Spiders on the left, bro.
Yep. There it goes. I will, if I see a spider on my windshield, but it's not within reach of the windshield, I will just head down whatever road at 90 miles an hour to get it off. School zone, whatever. At all costs, spiders should be avoided.
There's a dead spider inside my headlight on the 911.
Really?
Yeah.
I don't...
Like, it tried to climb in, and it got mostly in, and then got stuck.
Oh, Jesus.
So on Halloween, you just park your car in front of the garage door, and set the light on, and have the whole spider illuminated.
Dead spiders, curled up dead spider.
Yeah.
It's a slight bitch to get it open. I mean, it's not that hard, but sometimes it doesn't want to come back.
But this was a small one. The one you said was in your car was large, like you would say,
Was it a
stick of gum in diameter.
Yeah, so it was maybe 1.5 inches, tip to tip, which
That's
again,
really big.
For our metric viewers is 3 or 4 kilometers long.
Yep.
And that's enough.
That's too much.
It's too much.
That's too much.
I mean, it's small,
honestly
small by Australian
anything
standards.
bigger than half the size of a dime is too much. Like, that should not exist. I did have an encounter with a brown recluse once. I was at a friend's cabin.
How do you know if it's a brown recluse?
It was a brown recluse. It was brown. It was large,
Sure.
and I was sleeping in a friend's log cabin, and
It was there to write the next American novel, and it didn't want to be bothered.
it didn't want to be bothered. But boy, did I bother it. So I woke up in the middle of the night to use the restroom. Went to the sink to wash my hands. I turned on the faucet, and this spider, the size of about the size that was in your visor, jumped out of the drain, and I was suddenly very awake and cupping water and trying to wash it down the drain, and finally it went down the drain, and then I shut the drain, and then I went back to what was my sleeping bag basically, and I zipped it up such that all I had left was a little breathing hole. At the very least, if it stung anything, it would just be my mouth, which I feel like would not be as painful as anything else.
I mean, it would have the same effect as smoking.
Yes, exactly.
Okay.
So spiders are bad.
Well, they're terrible things.
Yeah.
But going back to, you're right, if a spider were to fall on the outside of your windshield, it doesn't matter where you're going. The answer is to drive fast enough to get it off, right?
Faster and faster. It's like speed.
Or spray the things.
Yeah, it's like speed, because the police will understand that it's just like the movie. You just can't go under 90 miles an hour, because that's clearly the scientific threshold for spiders' grips on glass.
Yeah.
Which is a topical segue because I did that very act again earlier tonight when my fuel door popped open.
Oh, yeah.
Turns out if I'm 50, 60 mile an hour.
Okay, so you please go on with this, but we have just learned just prior to the recording that this is a common thing, and all three of us have experienced this. But go on.
Wait, Jordan, before you get to that, Jordan's car is a 1996, truly a new for 96.
Yes.
993, 911 in arena red.
C2.
Carrera.
It is.
Yeah.
It is the blushing maroon.
It is.
Humble car of the period. And I adore it. I mean, it's the forever car. It represents the shop. It represents me. It's a little rough around the edges. And every time you turn it on, it swears at you. And so it's developed another old car quirk. I mean, there's a lot of old car quirks, but there's a new one where, as I'm driving along, if I hit a bump, the fuel door, which on a Porsche is on the front driver's side fender and is incredibly visible to you as you're driving along, pops open. I mean, we're not talking some CUV where you will never know that you've got the fuel handle still hanging out the back, dragging the hose down the highway. This is like, it's going to drive me nuts. And so it started popping off on a bump. And I thought, that's really annoying, until the first sort of time it happened. I went to close it again and realized it doesn't want to close. And me being the mechanic that I am, decided not to fix it, but to hit it harder, which is step one of any diagnosis.
Of course.
So I found
That's
out...
what they teach first day of Australian mechanic school.
Yep.
No. First day of Australian mechanic school is set fire to it to make sure the spiders are out.
Drink more beer.
Yep.
No, and so if I push it down really hard, it closed.
What if it is the spider in there just messing with you? Just messing with
A
you.
little arm, like, popping it open. So
I'm not going to make a joke about that. I just shut it. I visibly
too
shut
real.
it at the start of that.
Sorry.
Actually, no. That's what I have actually been caught at a service station before, or gas station, which sells a liquid, whatever.
Petrol.
America, you do you guys. So I was stuck at a service station.
Petrol
and
distillery.
Petrol distillery. They don't distill it there.
Petroleum
That's
distillate.
Baytown. No, so I was stuck there because it has a little flap, which you've got the interesting flap for your car, don't you? Like the Seinfeld one.
Oh.
I have just this OEM one.
All right, you do now? Who had the Seinfeld one?
I don't know.
I think Kevin Reese had it for a bit.
Oh, maybe.
Oh, the actual. Okay, yeah.
Yeah, and
The
it was,
Joshy Roberts one?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Anyway, so when you fuel a 911, it's into your front driver's fender. You pull a little toggle, it opens up, and then there's a flap to make sure you don't dribble fuel.
A bib,
A bib.
if you will.
And so I undid the bib, and there was a spider in there, and I got stuck at the fuel station. Had no fuel in the car. Couldn't put fuel in the car. It was in there.
Clearly, you should just drench the bib and the orifice, the gas orifice, with
fuel.
gasoline.
I did. That was the answer. I did.
I wish more cars had a bib.
I know. Honestly, that is really good because I've never. Well, you have spilled gas onto your fender,
Yeah, at some point
but
in the spring, it stopped. The fuel cutoff stopped working, so now I just don't fill it up until it clicks. I just fill it up after like 11 gallons, and then I start looking at the meter or at the thing. Thankfully, it's the one gauge that sort of works.
Yeah, I mean they're generally pretty reliable, but for me it's essential that it's reliable at the moment because I discovered as I close the fuel flap, it doesn't want to open again. I can't open it again until I hit another random bump.
Yep.
And so I'm now stuck playing this absurd roulette game where I get down to the last quarter of a tank. And I know that I have to go and find bumpy roads in Houston near a service station that I want to go to fill up. And I have to hit them and drive around the block and drive around the block and drive around the block and hope I don't run out of fuel where I can't get the thing open. Old car problems.
Old car problem because I just
Totally normal things.
In the last 2 weeks, that happened to me for the first time ever, where I scraped a driveway with the bar that runs underneath the front. And the fuel door popped open, and it was really strange. I was really worried that, that's not supposed to happen. And then when I got out of the car, the trunk was also open. So I apparently had disturbed it enough to open all of the latches all at once in the front.
This just reminds me, I remember when I was shooting the Carrera T last year, And I remember we were...
Is this the new Carrera?
Yeah, the new Carrera T. And I remember it was... And it's not even the stiffest 911, but we had driven it. Like, I think I was outside of the car for some reason. Chris was driving onto, like, a driveway to, like, fill up with gas. And seeing that go up, like, a driveway like that, and it's so stiff that, like, a wheel is off the ground on, like, a really, really shallow driveway.
Yeah, the 993 does that. It pulls a wheel because the suspension is
very
stiff.
Yeah.
My old Turbo S did that in a huge way because it was so low that I didn't give it any latitude to move.
Yeah.
The wheel just hit the top of the arch and lifted the whole thing up.
Yeah.
But certainly on the old cars, they shimmy and shake, and as you found out, if you touch it the right way, it'll open up for you.
Yeah. Everything goes out of alignment for a second. Yeah.
Throw caution to the wind.
That is astonishing.
But yeah. Huh.
So, what became of that spider? Did you actually drown it in gasoline?
Well, so the first one, I drowned that one in gasoline.
Yes.
The second one
Fair.
is an unknown soldier, and I fully expect there to be a replacement but smaller spider marching back and forth.
Listen, egg sacs only hold between
Oh, God damn it.
6 and 1,000 babies. So, Kevin has been motioning like a baby for the bottle.
Kevin is crawling out of his egg sac from honesty.
What a horrible word, sack. Like,
It's not good.
It's not good.
When my family lived in Florida, which is our Australia,
yeah. The family sack.
we were there for like 2 years as a kid. I'll make this very brief, but we moved to a place, and I for my whole life I thought this was all of Florida, but it was actually just our neighborhood because they bulldozed an orange grove to build a new development, and that was our house was in this development. And so we had all the worst spiders and insects in the house all the time. And they were huge spiders. And we had like 20-foot ceilings. And so there would always just be one really high up. And it was not good. And I still attribute that with all of Florida. But they were big spiders.
So where I used to live, I don't know, we're still on spiders. New for arachnids, 96 arachnids. So my old place used to have wolf spiders, which are completely harmless, but they can be kind of big.
They hunt in packs.
They do, and they are dime-sized. And here's the thing: the mother spiders will carry the hatchlings on her back, and so it will be a spider with like 100 little tiny spiders on her back, and if you disturb them, they will disperse.
Yeah,
and
I've
it is
seen that.
nightmare.
We had that with them in the pool. There was one going on the pool with 100 babies. And we hit it with the skimmer, and then it's like 1,000 little baby ones.
Welcome to our Halloween episode.
Yes, it is.
It has to be. And again, I need to remind that we link a picture of a huntsman spider, which is the dinner plate sized.
I'm not Googling that shit. I will not Google
Oh
that.
my god.
I can close my eyes and have severe issues imagining it. But they're dinner plate sized, and they're jerks. They're one of those, as Chris put it slightly earlier, the good spiders. You know, in your house they're keeping up the other critters, because if your dog gets too close, it'll eat it.
That's true.
What other critters are there? I guess everything.
Birds,
Scorpions.
Yeah.
neighbors,
Whatever.
You know, just they're regular kind of animals.
Within
the bilby.
an acceptable spider size is 1 millimeter.
Wait,
and
so
that
is a
it.
huntsman, is it like hairy like a tarantula?
Yes. So
God.
it's a big hairy spider.
It's bigger
And,
than a tarantula.
I don't believe so. I think that broadly comparable. I think it's a little skinnier. It's a more model focus. It's got long, thin legs.
Oh.
But the thing is what they do is they want to catch the bugs in the room, the birds, the people, the bees, everything.
Yep.
And so where is the most traffic? In a room, it's the doorway. So you walk into your room, you do your business, whatever it is you're doing in there, and then you look to go to leave, and it's sitting right above the doorway. Now, you didn't worry about that when you didn't know it was there, but now you're trapped in the room. As a kid, I climbed out of so many windows for that exact reason, because I would consistently sit above the doorway.
But would they drop on you?
No, those are the bears. The drop bears.
I am
Oh,
just
we talked about that last time,
We
and I
did talk about
Googled
that,
it,
yeah.
and then I don't remember. But
I am just imagining you as a child looking at pornography on your dial-up laptop in 2012, and then there'd be a spider watching you, and you it's just not going to happen.
There was one really good Australian porn website of the period. 8-bit bitches.
Oh, okay. We'll bleep some of that out.
We'll link to that.
Yes. No. Yeah, it was a simpler time. Rustic. We're terrorized by animals.
Indeed.
Delighting in the female pursuits 3 hours later at a time.
Yeah. Oh, okay. Well, then, side note. So I've been watching *Halt and Catch Fire*. Have you heard of this series? It is an AMC show about like the 1980s. It takes place in the 1980s and then spans into the 90s. But it's about like early, basically the early tech industry, like Steve Jobsian type stories. And the story has moved into the 90s now. The show's over now, but where I am, they've moved into the early 90s and they're developing the web basically.
Ooh.
And are starting to also enter now it's fast forwarding and they're developing search engines, or this is the nascent era but car related. So they have on the show selected cars for each of the personality types, and the Steve Jobs type on the show drives a first gen Acura Legend coupe because he is kind of like a visionary, like on the cusping or on the cusp.
Car.
Yeah, that is exactly
Didn't Steve Jobs like buy his employees like 944s? I think that's a story.
Is that a thing?
There's a number.
He was always a Mercedes fellow.
That was the thing.
He drove SLs.
Well, I knew that was later, but this was like in the 80s. I think
Oh.
he bought his employees 944s. I know Gates was into Porsches.
Yeah. Well, so we're talking
He's the original
Pioneer.
959
We're
guy.
talking Pioneer Steve Jobs type, not
Yeah.
the paranoid. I buy a new car every 2 months.
Oh no! Yeah, pioneer type. Like this would be like leading edge. I mean, like a Legend at the time, probably was cutting edge. Cutting edge, maybe not the most luxurious thing you could buy, but
This was when he was at Next, right?
yeah, this was the next era. In fact, one of the episodes is called Next, spelled in proper brand standards with NE cap X cap T, because that was the fastest computer that you could have at the time, and you could connect to the internet by way of the Next computer. But anyways, so okay, 1990s. If you were who you are today, well, no, because we all choose dumb Porsches still.
Yeah.
Let's say you were a affluent, technology-minded individual, just something a little bit ahead of your time. Let's pick 1992. What would be your car of choice? That is not a Porsche.
Oh, that's easy.
So easy.
To me, to be a used Aston Martin Lagonda.
Oh,
twist.
I see your wedge, and I raise you 850 CSI.
Oh,
but your kidney grill is bigger than mine.
Mm-hmm.
And
yeah.
that's going to be an issue on the audit button because I'm going to be pulled over and broken. And I'm going to really resent you going past.
I'm going to go with a 500e, a Mercedes 500e.
Oh, come
which is
on.
The
technically
biggest grill of all.
not
Yeah.
a Porsche, even if it has a hand-built motor by Porsche.
I pointed out on Twitter, this is dumb, but about me and Will were bitching about how the C8 Corvette, how it's weird that it's mid-engine and yet it has all these like giant grills on the front that are twice as much grills as the C7. And then Bozy pointed out, was like, well, the C7 overheated all the time. And I'm like, oh yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah. I was having that conversation with a client of mine that's moved into a Porsche Turbo after he's like, I've had like 6 or 7 Z06 Corvettes over the years, and I want something that works.
Yeah.
So 991 turbo, we've already pumped it up to sort of 650 horsepower, 650 torque. The next stage is around 800 wheel horsepower.
That's a transition. That's not what I would have considered ever a logical transition from a Corvette lineage to a 911. What would be let's fill in that blank.
They are sort of competitors.
They are, but
And especially if you're talking in like the Z06, which is like 650 horsepower.
ideology though. I mean, like
Ideology is different, but I mean, it's like you're talking like
I would have almost like assumed that you'd go like Aston first or something like that because you want like kind of muscle car, and you ease out of muscle car into something a little bit more agile.
Maybe, but people don't think that's a little. You're applying too much logic. Like
Maybe.
Corvette is the big brand North American supercar,
Right.
And 911 is the big brand European supercar.
Let me fill you in some more details, and then y'all can make your value
please,
judgments on it. So, from what he said, he was talking about he had an opportunity to get into a 458 or various other, turbocharged Ferraris and newer things. And he's like, I couldn't drive a Ferrari. I couldn't turn it to my friend's house. I couldn't go to work in it.
He's looking for an everyman.
It's like, the worker in your company sees a 06 and loves it.
Sure.
They see a GT350R and they love it. They see a 911, they don't care about it. They see you in a Ferrari, they hate you.
Oh, yeah.
And there is a big...
That's so interesting. It's really cool that you put it that way.
And so, I get a chance to drive a lot of these cars. I had a 458 that I borrowed for a while, and I drove that car down the street, and I made everybody's day who didn't know me because they loved seeing a Ferrari. I drove a GT350R for a week. Same thing. People loved it.
Yeah.
But then, that being said, I turned up to, a regular pub with some friends, turn up on the Ferrari, and they go, ugh. You turn with the Mustang, and they're like, I don't care about that. It's a very different thing. Like when people know you, these cars have a very different connotations to your experience driving them. Now, the thing with this particular client is, like he said, he's like, I can get away with the turbo. It looks like a Cayman.
If it's in like an unassuming color,
it is just Porsche.
And it is.
It's a lump of Porsche.
Turbo.
Yeah.
And then, so that's that particular aspect of his decision. He then describes, despite doubling the horsepower, we were also really focusing on the front end suspension setup turn in, because he's like, look, I went to the drag strip, I ran these times, I want to go way faster, but I also want to go to Coda and go way faster.
Yeah.
And so that's kind of what we're really focusing on there. What's really interesting is, like I said, I can bolt on some suspension bits from the GT cars and give him the same turn in as the GT3 RS. Very similar handling for relatively inexpensively using the backlog of parts that we have available to us from the Porsche program. We can also double the horsepower and double the torque and not have to upgrade the cooling system.
Wow.
And that's where the Corvette falls apart.
Yeah.
So
the Corvette just doesn't have the cooling.
It doesn't have the redundancy in the systems. It's not over engineered, and that will be reflected, and it's going to be an incredible value. Most cars, honestly, by the time you roll them out of the door, they're going to be $70,000 vehicles at this point. They're going to be amazing for the first 2 laps in Texas. When you try and race them further than that, it's going to fall apart pretty quickly.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see. I mean, I think with the C8, I think they had to have learned from the mistakes. And a lot of it's not even about cost. It's not that the cooling has a cost. It's like the cooling has to be thought of from the beginning. You have to shape the car in such a way that you can have the amount of air going in the right places.
Absolutely, and I think the worst thing they could have done for the narrative is to have made these substantial and dramatic changes and then go, oh wow, they did all this work and it still overheats like the last one. That is the first thing the magazines would have jumped on. And
well, so I wanted to talk about the C8 reviews a little bit. I don't know if you saw any of them, but just so there's 2 things that I found really interesting as a takeaway, because so the C8, the MotorTran, a bunch of magazines reviewed it this week. The reviews, the embargo broke. They drove it.
I read the roundup on Jalopnik, so I've seen the cliff notes of the reviews.
Well, so what's interesting is, first of all, everyone says, yeah, it's good. It's okay. It's okay. Wait till the good one comes out. Wait till the better one comes out.
Right.
And so it's like, you don't see that with 992, where it's like, oh, just wait till the GT3. It doesn't suck.
Yeah, because the C2 is
it's just, I've never seen a car graded on a curve like this, where it's like, yeah, it's fine, but it's gonna be not bad in 2 years. Wait 2 years. It's like if the iPhone X, the 10 comes out 2 years ago, and it's like, wait till the 11 in 2 years. It's gonna be really impressive.
As they are framing it, basically the base C8 Corvette is just the way that they get it to 60K.
Yeah, and all the ones they're reviewing. Also, I find it kind of bullshit that all the reviews are with $90,000
Yes.
cars, and
It's-
the whole story of this car is the $60,000
Exactly.
price.
That's the whole point. Is that
When you test a Porsche
supercar.
and it's expensive and it has $45,000 in options, and I know that every press car has all the options.
Sure.
But with a Corvette, when the story is $60K and no one will ever drive that in Motor Trend.
Yeah.
No one will ever review of a $60K Corvette.
It should just be good. I mean, like that base level should just be good in theory.
In theory.
In theory. So, I mean, I'm sure it'll be like the base, no options, actual 60K car is probably decent, but
Yeah.
But I say this with, every bit of self-awareness and smugness. Every year, despite what Porsche are doing, we don't grade them on value. We sit there, we drive them. We drive the current 911, we drive the current M3, M4, we drive the entry-level McLaren, the entry-level Ferrari, these other cars. And we sit back and tell ourselves, Porsche still make the best accessible sports car you can buy, year over year.
Yeah.
And, I live in a very insular world car-wise where I'm doing nothing but comparing Porsche on Porsche on Porsche, and the new one comes out. I hate change. We all hate change. It's scary. Mm-hmm. The rear end looks a little funny. I will get used to it. But then I spend, it's usually the third or fourth example of a new generation that I get to drive, play with, tinker, make a little louder, make a little faster, where I redefine that. I say, contemporary-wise, this is the best sports car you can buy now.
Yep.
And, the Corvette is becoming defined by its price and its value.
Yep.
And
But that's always been the story.
it has always been the story up until the point where they, maybe not explicitly, but really kind of tried to change that.
Yeah.
So I'm very curious to find out. One of my good friends is close to the top of the list for local orders here in Houston. He seems to think he's going to flip the car for a profit, and I doubt it. I doubt it severely, but I will get to drive it. I'm
Cool.
very much looking forward to it.
I would say in the first 2 to 3 months, he might be able to flip it for a value, as in like if you didn't get on the waiting list soon enough, I'm sure. But that's the other thing too, is that even an old 911, whether it's a 991 or 996, is still base level pretty good. And it doesn't have to try that hard. I mean, the dynamics, just the classic setup, but this car, the
I'm
C8,
sure this one will be pretty good
sure it'll be
around
fine.
town. If you're
Yeah.
not pushing on the track, it'll probably be fine without like the Z51 and stuff for most people.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, it's you make a good point. The other thing that I noticed that's funny about this one is all the reviews are like, well, it understeers like crazy, but keep in mind the owners are complete moron Neanderthals.
Yeah.
I mean, that's what they're saying.
Yeah.
I'm not putting these words in their
No,
mouth. Like they
right.
are saying, like
They are
it
used
understeers
to-
insanely, but these people, think about how stupid these people are going to be that buy it. I mean, that's like what every review says. It's like it understeers insanely, but keep in mind these owners have to get used to the mid-engine thing, and they probably
fake
don't
news.
even know how to pass a driver's
Oh,
test.
God.
Fake news. These people are just have an advanced knowledge of driving, and they know it's safer to hit the tree with the rear end first.
Yep. I was gonna say
They're very good at this.
because
Yeah,
They're going to work it out.
neutral handling.
we
will
love to
be-
hit the tree backwards, don't we, folks?
Yes.
And now there is an engine to protect them from
Yes.
instead of hollow fiberglass,
Yeah,
as Clarkson liked to point
and
out.
the golf clubs. And the
Yep.
golf
There's
clubs.
there's one particular saying that I use when clients come in and say, I need to buy another daily, what would you recommend? And I consistently recommend 3 or 4 year old, E classes, C classes. If they're BMW people, BMWs, but only if they're BMW people. But I basically say, go and look at what the car was worth new and sold for, and buy a car that's 4 years old that was kind of appeals to you in that area. The reason being, if Mercedes or Audi or BMW engineered this to be in $100,000 car, even 4 years later when it's worth $45,000, it was still engineered to be sold
True.
at $100,000
Yeah.
level, and it lasts and it
Maintained
lasts
that
a
way.
lot better.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
And you look at something, the Corvette was designed to be a $60,000 Corvette. So in 4 years, that thing is going to be horrible.
It will be
Regardless, 'cause
It will
And the best
feel like
version,
what it's worth at that
when
time.
they sell a new one for $140,000,
That's
it's
it.
it's
And
still
if
gonna be-
they have to make money at $60,000 now, You know, they've
Yeah.
really missed that point where they could have pushed the price a little and got exponentially better results.
Yeah.
The one, and Kevin, you might know this, the one review that really spoke to me was decried the lack of character. They said the car is incredibly fast. It doesn't feel like itself. And I don't remember which publication that was. It was one of the big ones.
No.
It was a smaller quote in one of the...
I saw Road and Track, and I saw Car and Driver and Motor Trend.
Yeah, so this was one of those on the smaller section that Jalopnik picked.
Okay.
And where I really liked that, and I spoke about it to a couple of clients that day after I was reading it because it was on my mind, that's how I feel about McLaren. Is, and I think I might have told you this before, you know, I got to drive a 570S for about a week, and just to get to know it and familiarize myself and prep it for the track. And I've driven a lot of Ferraris and a lot of Porsches, and you drive a Porsche and you go, well, they made this car for 60 years. It is what it is.
Yeah.
It's pretty good. You know, you drive a Ferrari and you go, yep, they made this car for, 40-ish. They've had a rear mid-engine V8 thereabouts.
Yeah.
A little less, but it's this, it's a Ferrari. I mean, they have these specific characters. Porsche has their evolution. Ferrari has tradition, and I distinguish those. Ferrari holds on to a bad idea a lot longer, knowing well that the engine's out the back in the 911.
Yep.
But McLaren, they engineered a car to be incredibly bland, just to not be like a Ferrari and not be like a Porsche. And, I never really fell in love with the car.
Yeah.
And there was a point reading those Corvette reviews, like the roundup from different publications from people that it takes a lot for cynical media, automotive journalist types to be excited about something and they didn't get it. The James May fizz.
Right.
They didn't come from that car.
And that's a shame because we even said on an earlier episode how excited we were for what this car meant, because at a $60,000, the C8, because it is important, as in, like, you can have all of this for $60,000, but it may turn out to be, and we, to reiterate, none of us have driven it. However, from the average of reviews, as it turns out, like, it's fine. Like,
yeah, I mean, it's
not
delivering
revolutionary.
The specs and everything delivers is like it's like a Ferrari F430. What it did for 180 grand, 12 years ago.
Yeah,
obviously you're not getting that entirety, but it is an interesting proposition.
I'm a little bit sad, and I was never onto the looks from the start, but I'm kind of sad that it's already starting to age.
Well, it's funny because when they debuted it, so they debuted it in the red in like some dramatic lighting
and the bad wheels.
And the bad wheels, but in every photo in the real world, it looks worse than those launch photos. Every color that's not the red looks worse. Every color is bad.
I hate to say that. I mean,
every
I really hate to say
bad.
that because,
So I have a personal Corvette story about when I moved to the US. Was right around when the C7 was launched.
Yeah.
And where we are with the C8 now is when I kind of got off the boat. And that was a car. I mean, that was a striking design.
The C7.
I think when C7 came out, we were all going, "Wow, that looks really good."
Yeah.
Then I got to see some of the earliest ones in town, and I don't know if they didn't take the shipping blocks out of them, or if I didn't quite realize the ramifications that Corvette owners drive them 3 times a year, and they're a little older. But I'd seen the wheel gap between the top of the rim and the tire to the wheel arch was tremendously bad from what I expected and what I wanted and what I expected to see. So I'm reserving judgment for the C8 because I think they could claw some of that back if they set the cars up well.
The fundamental problem
that there will be cool versions that will, but seems like they're starting at a fundamental bad back step because they designed it to have this trunk in the back.
Here's the thing: is that also there's already so much clad to it. I mean, it's restrained for GM, but there's already so much clad, and then you add more for the special editions. Like, can it look better? Possibly.
The race car actually looks good. The race car doesn't have like an add-on chin splitter. It has like a splitter that sticks out further in a cool way, but it doesn't make it taller. It's just a little bit deeper.
I understand that where they had to go was to add clad to be different. Like they didn't want it to look like a Ferrari.
Go and Photoshop the race car renderings and remove any livery or graphic from it.
Yeah.
And it's going to look bad again.
It's a horrible livery too.
It's a horrible livery, but you expect it. You ignore the busyness of the livery, and a lot of the busyness of the body blends into that. And it going back to the prototype, the camouflage.
Yeah.
That's what the race car does for me. I mean,
what a shame, just in general, because like a mid-engine car is always going to have a unique look to it. It doesn't need more to help it. Although some might argue for certain cars that didn't turn out so well. I mean, actually, I can't think of it. Okay, what is a mid-engine car that does not look good?
718 Cayman.
yeah. Well,
Okay, that's different.
Yeah, hands down.
That is different. Well, the 718 is a 981. I think a 981.
I don't like
looks
the
fine.
981 unless it's the
Boxster.
GT4.
Yeah, the GT4 is perfect.
GT4
The
looks
wing
good.
helps. I think I love.
Wait,
the
we're talking
987.
about Cayman. Okay, so Boxer looks good.
Boxer looks
Because
good.
mid-engine cabriolets, spiders.
Mid-engine cabriolets look cool because it
good.
really emphasizes that the windshield is so far forward.
And I agree that the 718 is not the most pretty car, and it's because they evolved it from the 987 and decided it would sell more if it looked more like a 911. So that's unfortunate because the original Cayman did have a unique look to it. People
Yeah.
didn't take to it as well.
Before you derailed us, I was going to ask you
Okay.
what Corvettes he's driven. But sure, let's keep answering this line of questioning.
Fine. Go ahead. Wait,
what?
what?
Do you want to answer the question? Or the
Kevin
bullets?
is getting sassy.
Okay,
Let's
so the,
answer his
FPM.
question.
You want an earnest list of Corvettes that I've driven?
Yes.
C7 Z06.
All right.
I have driven none.
That's it.
I've driven a C7 Z51 and a C6 Z06 and a C6 regular one.
I almost towed a C7 7-speed manual in LA, but did not get to it.
It's a
Don't-
neat
Don't
car.
get me started on 7-speed manuals.
Oh,
That is so weird. I just can't, because I already like feel like 6 gear is so useless in general. I can't imagine like where do you need 6
It's just overdrive, and it's
and then
just to
where do
hit
you
fuel
need
emissions
7?
emissions
I know,
targets.
I know,
And
but
there's a tacit acceptance of that in the industry because if you drive a 991 with the 7-speed, you have to go hunting for the 7th gear. I mean, you forget it's there. It's not intuitive. It's a second reverse. You have to make a conscious decision.
Yeah.
Actually, I want to go that way. And there was a time with the launch of the 991s, they had a far more complicated vacuum control system with a series of solenoids.
Yeah.
And for those who haven't ever worked in the automotive industry, you have a part number from a manufacturer. You normally have like the model or the chassis that it's in,
Yeah.
and then you have like a group number category that it's in. Like so for Porsche, you have like 996 dot, so it's a 996 part. Then you'll have 106. If 106 means it's related to coolant,
Yeah.
or if you had 105, it means it's related to oil. And then you have a dot, 3-digit number, and that's the part. There's
Yeah.
never really more than 1,000 parts in a category for a car.
yeah.
And then there's the last 2 numbers. It starts with .00, then it goes .01, .02. And those are the revisions of that part where over the years and the different model years, they start updating. They work out what fails.
Yeah.
It's really interesting.
Now-
We should start the podcast here.
Well, actually, I mean, this is a very technically interesting thing. I mean, if you're on your part supplier, your Pelican parts or ECS or whatever it is you choose to use to
Yeah.
avoid paying me, not sassy, not better, and you pay attention to the revision of the last part number. You want the most current, up to date one. Normally, on a 996, we might see the last numbers being 0304. We've had 3 revisions, 4 revisions of that part.
Yeah.
That's what's current. It's pretty rare to see anything higher than that, even for earlier ones.
Yeah.
The 991s, these vacuum solenoids were up to 7 or 8.
Wow.
Within 2 years of the car being released.
Wow.
The
Have they failed?
they failed, and the supplier just couldn't get it together for the conditions of where it was
Interesting.
sitting. And what was quirky about that, I mean, this is modern electronics,
Yeah.
and part of that controlled parts of the coolant system. So you would have this vacuum solenoid fail that
Yeah.
stopped your sport exhaust, but also threw a coolant overheating warning. And that was something that we kind of struggled and dealt with in the beginning. And there was one car, and this going way back to the 7-speed thing, one car where we'd replace the solenoid, and we kept getting sent ones that weren't the latest revision. Plug it back in, and it would be bad out of the box. To the point where we give the guy, the client, the car back, drive it for 2 days, warning light would come back on, bring it back in warranty work. We'd replace it with a new version of the solenoid. Warning light would come on. Because we're buying from similar dealers. Yeah, they just gave us the next one off the shelf.
Yeah.
They're all bad. Got to the point where we're like, no, order us a new one from the factory. We'll go from there. And then the client said, go and drive the car. And I'm doing laps of 610. You know, and it's not slowly, but not crazy fast anyway.
Yeah.
1.5 laps later, I remember to have a 7th gear. It took me that long, like a good hour and a half of driving, to remember that there was a 7th gear.
What a tall gear! Like, how fast do you need to be going for that to really make sense?
So it really isn't speed dependent. You can go 9.5 tenths of flat out in 6th gear. The 7th just drops your RPM down. Now on the 991s where this was introduced and released, it had the evolution variant of the 9A engine architecture that didn't have the same problems as the M9X version, the 906 and 907.
Yeah.
The big things in the 996s and 997s is if you're consistently driving at 6th at regular American highway speeds, even for fuel efficiency reasons, your crank spinning at 1,500 to 2,000 RPM. If you want to overtake and you don't downshift, your crank will walk. It will
because you're
flex.
lugging it kind of.
You're lugging the motor and it will flex. And you've got these 997s that have highway miles and broken cranks for that reason. The later the 991s, you didn't really get that. But I still have a natural aversion to...
Wait, how does a crank walk and then brake?
Well, so when you want to save money, because you're the most profitable car company in the world, but you were nearly bankrupt 10 years ago, you try and buy Volkswagen, and then a financial crisis hits,
and then they Volkswagen
buys you. But it's okay because you, the Porsche family, own Volkswagen or run Volkswagen.
Anyways, yeah.
And you know it's a family reunion. The uncle's weird, and you basically go to a Japanese car designer to design your new modern 911. They do that, and then you do the first generation, and then you do the second one. Realize we can save money here, here, and here, and you stop putting forged parts and things.
So, what you're saying is the 997 has more cost cutting than the 996, or equal amount in different measures?
Much more.
Really? This really goes against everything.
I would have thought the other way around. Yeah.
No, it does because the Cayenne and the Boxster and the new wave of cars really ushered in a modern corporate culture.
Yeah.
And so while for the 996, they engineered it the old-fashioned way to be futuristic.
Yeah.
And then by the time they got to the 907, they realized, stuff this, like we're going to do what everyone else is doing. Because you think about the timeline, the financial crisis, that was really when Volkswagen stepped in and said, hey, our accountants aren't going to approve this. And so another aspect to that, I'm not blaming cost cutting for the crank being more likely to flex in the 997 than 996.
Yeah.
But more the displacement. They increased the bore, but not necessarily the stroke to get to the 3.8.
Yeah.
And so it put more pressure on the ends. And it was when you do that's what created issues.
I mean, this is just like forum data, but that the S's just have more points of catastrophic failure. For no scientifically proven reason, just that by number of posts that the S's are more vulnerable to catastrophic failure.
So I feel like you should be able to answer this because if you talk about the 991 turbos and the packages, they say that 2/3 are sold are S's, right? The 991 turbo itself is a rare beast compared to its more expensive variant.
Yeah.
And I wonder if for the 997 there's something along those lines where maybe there's a lot more of them and people race them more.
It's a funny thing. So I am currently in the market for a 997, and I'm redoing this search from 3 years ago when I was debating between a 996 and a 997, and then ended with a 987 too. So I'm coming into the threads again about between 997 1 C2, 997 C2S, and then 0.2s are probably more than I want to spend at this point, unless it's kind of mid-high mileage. And even then, they're DFI, and they come with their own set of problems. But 997s have an interesting set of issues. IMS aside, bore scoring is heavy on the list of catastrophic failure points, and then amongst other things as well.
The GT4s and 991s had the same issue.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
Well, GT4. We talked about this before in the last podcast, but because I was mistaken about the origins of that engine. So it's a 9A engine.
Yes, and you're right. I said that specifically where Jake Raby called it.
Yeah.
In certain aspects, and look, one of the wonderful things about Porsche is you can walk into the dealership and buy anything they offer, even the SUVs, and you can go and hammer it around the track, and it's gonna last.
Yeah.
I mean, the same can't be said for most vehicles you can drive off a lot. They're not track ready.
Yeah.
And this is where I really want to temper expectations, as far as when you're looking at the older cars and their failure rates, is because those cars have had terrifically hard lives compared to any of their contemporaries you might want to consider tracking. I mean, you look at the M3 subframe issue, those cars were just hammered at the track consistently, and we found that problem. And BMW themselves, they probably tracked their trial cars for a while and went, that's fine. But the metal fatigue set in. That being said, if you're falling into that category, and we joked about rooftop tents and 996s and things like that, the 996 C4S to me is a high point of that particular era.
Why the C4S in particular?
It's the wide, it's the turbo without the turbo.
Right, it's a nice wide body.
And I do think,
but it's the same M96 engine.
But it's the second to 3.6, the 320-ish horsepower, and that's a reliable one. We don't get a lot of problems with them. The other car that I never see, I mean, there are endemic issues with them, but they're actually really rare. It's the 907.2.
Yeah.
You don't see them driving.
You don't, and they didn't make a lot of them. That's the other thing.
It was made during the recession. No one was buying new Porsches.
But here's the thing: is that so Jake Robbie did predict that they'd eventually have carbon buildup issues, and now to this day, or rather in this era, on the forums, it's not as catastrophic as bore scoring and IMS, but people are complaining in very small numbers that there are some carbon buildup issues, but same with any DFI engine, anyways. So it may or may not. You would be able to speak to this more, but cleaning up carbon buildup on a 9A engine.
I've never had to do it.
Okay, yeah. I don't know what is involved, how much more involved it might be.
It would be a process.
Yeah.
It would be a process. You've got a number of hours to pull the intakes on the top, which we do from time to time. A number of hours to pull the exhaust manifolds off the bottom, you do from time to time. But really, strictly, I've never had to do it.
Yeah.
No one's ever come with me with a particular concern.
I would love that to be the deal of the century, because I saw in the search two 997.2s in the mid-30s right now for about 70,000 miles.
Ooh.
And I think that they are likely more robust, obviously, than the M96 engines. But I don't know how what an issue carbon buildup would be.
So I wouldn't consider that the issue. I would expect and budget to replace the high pressure fuel pump. That's a common failure point there.
Sure.
Also, in that category, if someone were to come to me and say, hey, I want to buy a 997.2 GTS, I don't have a single bad thing to say about them. I mean, that is a future classic, and they're
honestly
phenomenal.
I'd rather...
I've done searches. They're all cabrios, and the ones that aren't cabrios and the ones that are cabrios are also all PDK. And PDK is fine, but we're probably not looking for that.
No, that's
the most expensive non-turbo you can buy.
The GTS, they're a lot of
not a GT3.
You're talking final model year, final 2 model years.
Yeah.
All cabrios.
You're right. That's true. Except the one 997.2 GTS that I regularly work with is a manual.
Yeah.
Ooh, that's nice.
And it's a coupe.
That's cool.
That's
cool.
rare.
And it's black on black, and it's
that's
honestly
terrible. But I'm sure it's a cool car.
All day long, I'd rather have maybe some carbon buildup issues, and high pressure fuel pump issues than IMS or bore scoring
Or broken cranks.
or broken cranks.
Yeah.
Because like at the very least, you
Did
don't
the
need to
crank
tear
change on
down
the
the
point
entire
two?
engine.
Did the crank change when they went to the 9A?
So
or
when they went to the 9A engine in the point 2, they removed the intermediate shaft entirely.
Yep.
They completely redesigned the engine.
No IMS.
They lowered the crank. I mean, they kind of lowered a lot of parts of it into the bottom of the car. I mean, it is a much better engine.
Okay.
Hands down, a much better engine. To me, it's very telling of Porsche that for all the new 911 generations, we don't see a lot of problems that pop up. Those engines tend to be pretty bulletproof, pretty reliable. When every single generation of Cayenne and every single Panamera and every single Macan has problems.
Yeah.
When they repurpose an engine from somewhere else, issues.
Yeah.
It's that Leipzig thing. Did you know that the Lamborghini Urus engine is built in Stuttgart?
Oh no!
Isn't that crazy?
Because
the V8 twin turbo most premium Audi VAG group engine is built in Zuffenhausen by Porsche, and it goes into the Urus.
In the 6-cylinder, wait, is there a 6-cylinder Urus?
No.
Okay, so it's all V8. It's the
Audi
Volkswagen?
engine.
Okay,
Yes, the Volkswagen Audi engine.
Have
Yeah.
you driven one?
No.
Oh, God, it's an ugly car. The only time they look good is in black when everything's hidden.
Yeah.
You know what it reminds me of a little bit? The Isuzu Axiom.
Ooh, good comparo.
But like,
I don't know what that is, but
Oh.
I'm laughing at the Isuzu comparison.
yeah, the Axiom actually seems more like it'd be a Euro Australian car.
Joe
but-
Isuzu is laughing
Joe
at you.
Isuzu, I know.
I think
Should we wrap this up?
I think we should wrap this up.
Okay.
Because we are coming up on the hour and 15 here. But,
my.
Jordan,
It'll be 45 when we cut everything out.
I know. Jordan, thanks for being on the podcast.
Thank you.
And
Cheers.
we hope that you might stay in my guest shed in the back. It's not air conditioned, I'm afraid. For the
The
next
heat is
episode.
on.
Are there spiders
Yeah.
there?
We insist that you be on the next episode, but you'll have to sleep.
I will stay right here.
Okay.
Have a nap.
Excellent.
Actually,
Mine.
I'll roll out the swag.
Yeah.
Camp
yeah.
by the Billy Bong.
Yep.
And that is a couple of lines from our most famous Australian poem, Waltzing Matilda.
My God.
Okay.
It's about a guy that steals a sheep
We'll link to
and then
that.
dies.
Yeah.
Do you have anything you want to promote?
No, I really don't. I mean, I've got 2 wonderful, beautiful cars for sale, but I don't really want to sell them. I want to keep them.
Okay.
But
Remind
unfortunately, Business Daddy suggests that putting cash back into the shop is a really good idea right now.
Okay.
So there is a 2002 E46 M3 convertible with a manual, 80,000 miles, restored, wonderful car. And then a 1989 944 S2 that I absolutely loved until I let Kevin drive it and he got out with a tepid response.
Oh my God, I was hoping you wouldn't hear that. And then you heard it on this show.
Yes,
How could I expect that anyone would listen to this?
My God.
Follow Jordan, follow Modern Air Cooled on Instagram.
Yep.
And follow us, New for 96. Send us an email. It's linked in there somewhere. And I think that's a show.
I think that's the show. Thanks for listening. Thanks,
Bye.
Jordan, for being on. Goodbye.
Thank you for having me on again.